Leipoldt's Cape Cookery. Methods of cooking. Dictation. In boiling, semicolon, in boiling, semicolon, which is another essential way, of cooking, comma, the heat is communicated to the foodstuff, through the intermediary of water, that has been raised to a high, or boiling, temperature, semicolon. In frying, oil is substituted for water, but the principle remains the same, full stop. In both boiling and frying, a part of the flavor and nutritive quality of the food may be lost, because it is taken up by the water, or the oil, full stop. It is therefore necessary to stop for a moment, to consider what actually occurs when either of these methods is used, to compare their advantages with other methods, in which direct heat is employed, full stop. New paragraph. When a foodstuff is placed in water, and that water is brought to the boil, some part of the soluble ingredients in the food is dissolved in the water, full stop. The result is that when the food has been cooked, it has lost that portion of its contents, which is now to be found in the water in which it has been boiled, full stop. In frying, this is less often of importance, because oil is not a good solvent, and the heat of the oil usually coats the foodstuff with an impermeable film, through which its soluble content cannot percolate, full stop. We take advantage of this when we make soup, or extracts, full stop. The foodstuff is placed in water which is brought to the boil, comma, which is brought to the boil, comma, and then slowly simmered, comma, and then slowly simmered, comma, so as to extract from the food as much of its soluble content as is possible, full stop. In that way we obtain a soup, comma, which is in reality a decoction of foodstuffs, full stop. If, however, we wish to have the foodstuff boiled for itself, comma, it is necessary to plunge it into boiling water, comma, the heat of which at once solidifies the surface into a protective film, behind which the soluble contents may be allowed to cook steadily, until the food itself is tender, full stop. The old cooks understood this perfectly, and in Cape recipes, a clear distinction is always drawn between boiling to extract the soluble content of the food, hyphen, in which it is always recommended that cold or lukewarm water should be used, and generally heated, hyphen, and boiling to make the food itself more palatable, full stop. End of section on boiling.